So the reason why I like to do videos like this, where I dig into statistics, I show you a different perspective on things to potentially change people's minds. I go through history and show you the true history, maybe talk about some things that the mainstream media isn't talking about. I like to do this in particular for a couple of reasons. One, I know that there are people out there who are entirely misinformed, who don't see a different perspective on things, who are stuck in this sort of bubble, who maybe have wandered off and found this channel somehow, found this video somehow, and saw a different perspective on things and completely changed their mind. Because I know that there's a lot of people out there who do. I get emails all the time, hundreds of emails. I've showed you emails that I've received that say, hey, you completely changed my mind on this, or I wasn't looking at this from this angle, or I can't believe the media didn't tell me about this missing piece of information while they're sharing context, sharing stories completely out of context with me and regurgitating these talking points that I've heard throughout all my years and going to school. I do this for those people who have just been going with the flow, constantly regurgitating the same left-wing talking points they've heard in media, they've heard from stars, they've heard from athletes, they've heard from academia, from the schools they've attended. I do it first and foremost to potentially change minds. Number two, I do it for the people who already agree with me, who already know what I'm talking about, to potentially arm them with more information, talking points, arguments, to go out and consistently cause a chain reaction of changing other people's minds that I can't reach, right? Whether it be via talking with others online and using these arguments that I provide to you in a lot of different cases. Those are some of the most important things to me. This is mainly what keeps me going, especially when I see lots of emails like that. And unfortunately, I can't get to all of the emails or respond to all of the emails. I wish I could. But this brings me to Colin Kaepernick's tweet that came after just this past 4th of July, where he completely lied about slavery. He completely lied about the United States of America using a quote from Frederick Douglass. Now he says, quote, "What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? This 4th of July is yours, not mine. There is not a nation on earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour." And then it says Frederick Douglass underneath it. Now, when someone uses a quote, they're saying what they said, right? This is what they're saying. Right? It's very obvious. I think that Colin Kaepernick isn't one of these people who are doing this deliberately to stoke division or doing this deliberately because they know exactly what they're doing. I know there's a lot of people in media who do that, but I don't think that Colin Kaepernick is one of those people. I think that Colin Kaepernick is a very low IQ person. He didn't make it in the NFL. And now he's rampaging against, America and how racist America is and how racist NFL owners are and this, that, and the other, while being paid by Nike to talk about how bad America is and talk about oppression, even though Nike, I think, is the last person that should be talking about oppression. They're, enslaving children essentially to create their shoes to sell, to afford to pay Colin Kaepernick to talk about oppression, which is just entirely ridiculous, just by itself. But Colin Kaepernick is saying that there is not a nation on earth guilty of practice more shocking and bloody than the people of these United States at this very hour. He shares a video of, talking about slavery, this, that, and the other, how America is terrible, blah, 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 right? This is the same sort of thing that we're seeing from a lot of different people who look at the past through the lenses of modern day 2019, right? They're not doing it in the correct fashion, which is to look at the past in the lenses of the past and understand what happened, understand that it's wrong, and now we continue to move on, right? No one's doing this for Martin Luther King, as I argued in my other video, where this is the 1960s we're talking about with Martin Luther King, not the 1860s, not the 1760s, not the 1660s. We're talking about the 1960s, where the FBI, under lock and key, according to the top MLK Jr. scholar, they have files that show that Martin Luther King had 40 different extramarital affairs and watched and laughed and applauded as a woman was raped. Probably multiple women. For all the people who are talking about Jeffrey Epstein today, Martin Luther King, for all the people who are talking about Bill Cosby, Martin Luther King has nothing on Bill Cosby. It's probably right up in the realm of Jeffrey Epstein, according to the top MLK Jr. scholars that we have out there and according to FBI files, apparently. But no one's talking about him. Of course not, because he's not white. And this is really what it comes down to. I think that Colin Kaepernick is extremely low IQ. I think he's extremely misinformed, and I think he's one of these misinformed people that we're trying to reach out to correct in their history. Now, before we get into something that's going on today, as far as like slavery, right, which I talk about quite often, and how no one's talking about that, how not even one word from Colin Kaepernick about that, of course. Before we get to the Betsy Ross flag, and before we get into the women's soccer star who completely threw the flag on the ground and trampled it, the American flag, I just do want to remind you to go to preparewithvincent.com. Just take a trip over to preparewithvincent.com. You can get $100 off of a 4-week dry food supply. You can also get $60 off of a 2-week dry food supply automatically when you go to preparewithvincent.com. This food lasts 25 years, so it's dry food. Lasts 25 years. You store it wherever you want to store it. And it's a good idea to start stocking up on food. A lot of people stock up on ammo. Not too many stock up on food. And you can't survive without food. So I think that it's a good idea to stock up on food there. So let's get back to this Colin Kaepernick tweet here with this video that he shared. There's not a nation on earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. Now, I seem to remember Arab nations, several of them, practicing slavery against Africans, by the way, for hundreds upon hundreds of years prior to the transatlantic slave trade. I seem to remember 4 or 5 million more African slaves going to places in South and Central America than in the northern United States. I seem to remember that only 4% of the South owned slaves during the short period of time where we had, slavery was a huge, huge thing happening in the United States of America. Only 4% of the South owned slaves. I seem to remember that the South was mainly an agrarian community. The North was mainly free men, a building industry, and where most of our infrastructure started in the United States, built by free men, and yet we still hear that slaves built this country. I seem to remember that it was mostly Italian, 99% of the people, that 99% of the infrastructure that has been built in this country, whether it be roads or bridges or canals or skyscrapers or modern day medicine or anything that you can talk about when we're talking about the United States in particular, or I guess in a 30,000 foot view, Western society at large. I seem to remember in the United States, though, that it was mainly Italian and Irish legal immigrants that built most of that infrastructure that I just mentioned. Most of that infrastructure that I just mentioned, roads, bridges, canals, indoor plumbing, right, that we have that other third world countries don't have. Do you like the fact that you can flush toilet paper down the toilet? It's like these people don't understand how great this country truly is. I seem to remember that was mostly built by Italian and Irish Americans, while the South was still behind as an agrarian community because slavery was a terrible, 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 dumb, low IQ business decision, and of course, immoral at that, right? But I'm looking at in the past with the lenses of the past. It's a terrible decision. It's a terrible business decision, I guess. On top of that, when you take into consideration that you actually have to feed people from childhood as a baby, feed them, keep them strong, raise them, and then continue to keep them strong all the way through adulthood. I think that's I think that it probably is going to cost a lot more than just having a bunch of Chinese people come over here and build the railroads, or allow a bunch of Italians, millions of Italians and millions of Irishmen, allow them in citizenship here legally to build the roads, bridges, canals, skyscrapers, and everything that you enjoy today, essentially, in America. I think that it sounds like a more intelligent business decision to do that than to raise someone from a child. But a lot of people argue that that's the reason why they were set back for quite some time as far as the South goes, as far as industry goes. But outside of that, I mean, we just look to current times, And we can see slavery happening today in Libya. I mean, when we talk about the Arab slave trade, and I talk about this often, it happened hundreds upon hundreds. It started hundreds upon hundreds of years prior to the transatlantic slave trade, meaning North America, Central America, South America, and it's still happening today in Libya. And the reason why they have the potential to continue this slave trade in Libya is because your favorite president, Hillary Clinton, your favorite president who didn't become president, Madame President, who didn't become president. She was on the cover of Time magazine as Madame President. I have that magazine. I purchased one of them. She took out Libya. Her and Barack Obama did, your favorite president, the actual president, Barack Obama. They took out Libya. That's where most of the African migration is going from, right, through Libya into Europe. So they caused a lot of that to happen. They also took out Libya, one of the most successful, one of the most secure countries in Africa. And now there's Arabs, once again, as they have done throughout history, trading, castrating black Africans, selling them on the slave markets. And no one's talking about it, not even Colin Kaepernick. Now, does he know about this? Probably not, because the CNN or the mainstream media that he probably watches doesn't talk about that either, because they know that it would pull the structure right out of the narrative that they're trying to construct, which is that only white people have practiced slavery throughout history, when the truth of the matter is that the Arab slave trade is deemed the African Holocaust for a reason, because somewhere in upwards of 12 to 20 million Africans were killed during the African Holocaust at the hands of Arabs. We know that white people have been enslaved throughout history by Arabs as well. This is a fact that no one seems to want to recognize. When we talk about colonialism, we can look at the Moors in Sicily, we can look at the Moors in Spain, we can look at the Mongolian Empire, we can look at several different empires throughout history where basically every single ethnicity in every single fashion practiced the same practices, where Frederick Douglass, who Colin Kaepernick is trying to use his quote in, are talking about the bloody practices of the United States, right? The truth is that the West ceased slavery before anyone else. Arabs are still practicing it today. No one's talking about it against blacks. They practiced it for hundreds upon hundreds of years prior to the Western men. Did we stop slavery before anyone else in the world? We also created all the things that you enjoy today, whether it be Western medicine, antibiotics, whether it be the air conditioning. Do you like to sit in your air-conditioned apartment while you type away at how bad white people are? Well, look to William Carrier. Look to all these great things that have come about through the West and say that do not outweigh the bad things. Because you would be wrong if you did say that. If you were to put it on a pros and cons list of white males, straight white males throughout history, if you were to make a list of pros and cons, you would have very few cons and pages upon pages upon pages, probably longer than the Bible itself, of pros, of good things, of positive things that you enjoy, right? Do you enjoy your air-conditioned apartment while you type away on your Apple computer or your Apple iPad or your Apple iPhone, or you listen to your headphones, or you turn on your light, or whatever you want to talk about, all the things that you enjoy? Do you enjoy flushing your toilet paper down your toilet? Do you enjoy doing that? Because I think that it would be a good idea, and I was talking to someone before, and I actually had this idea myself. I think it would be a good idea to make it mandatory to graduate high school, and you have to visit a third world country. Do you enjoy indoor plumbing? Do you enjoy, I don't know, traveling down the street with your iPhone in hand without a worry of someone coming by in a motorbike and swiping it from your hand? Do you enjoy not having to put away your car in a locked metal huge iron door like you have to do in most third world countries before you go to bed at night? Do you enjoy being able to sit in your car with your car turned on and drive while you're waiting for someone to come out of the store, while you're looking at your iPhone without having a gun being shoved in your face? Do you enjoy that? Because you are trying to make this country into that. You who talk about how bad white people are and how we can't be reaching objectivity through rational thought because it's a particularly white male way of thinking. We have to reach objectivity through irrational thought, and this is how we need to come to these conclusions, and the white man bad, this, that, and the other. You who keep saying that, you are the same people who enjoy these first world things, who enjoy the quote-unquote first world problems. And you are the same people who are trying to turn this country into the third world, where you can't flush your toilet paper down the toilet, where you can't really have air conditioning, where you can't leave your car out at night without any worries of it being robbed, with like a 90% chance of your car being broken into or a 90% chance of your car being stolen. You should take a trip to a third world country. You should take a trip down the streets of poor areas in third world countries, and maybe you would have more of an appreciation of why we should keep this a first world country instead of living in millions upon millions of third worlders who are just going to bring their culture with them, not learn the language, and turn this into a third world country. Just go to any one of your of these ethno states that seem to keep popping up in America, whether it be Santa Ana, California, or Anaheim, which were two cities which were very nice back in the 1950s and 60s, where you can leave your door unlocked, where you're hearing gunshots now today on almost a constant basis. And you have to put your car away in a locked garage because it would probably get broken into in places like Santa Ana, or some of these different things that are mere images of third world countries, because these people tend to bring their cultures with them and then expect you to follow along. That's what these people are doing. And when you look at things like the Betsy Ross flag and Nike taking away these shoes or whatever, as they truly do engage in oppression while they have child slaves constructing their shoes, or you look at these soccer stars throwing down the American flag, these lesbian soccer stars trampling the American flag as they do their dances. Why don't they go live in places like Honduras or Guatemala or Venezuela, or I don't know, Haiti, maybe Kenya, maybe Congo, maybe Libya? Why don't they go live in those places that they say would be great because of diversity, which just means no white people? Oh no, they're saying that they're going to move to Italy or France or Canada or any other majorly white country if Trump got elected, which they didn't move to, by the way, but they only chose white countries. They didn't pick any countries that were diverse, which they say is our strength, which the logical no is not our strength. These are these people. These are these same people. And so this is the reason why I like to point a lot of these things out. And the whole Colin Kaepernick thing, this all got started with the whole Black Lives Matter debacle, right? This is how this all got started. But when you actually look at the whole Black Lives Matter thing, this got started by the media, not giving you the full context of the situation, not telling you that 3 to 4 times more white people are shot at the hands of police than black people are, not telling you that most of the people that these riots ensued after were people who were deservedly shot by the police, people who were criminals, who caused crimes, who were not innocent people. Most of them, right? 90+% of these people were not innocent people. But there are many more whites who are innocent, probably, if we actually look into the stories of them, which the media doesn't talk about, who are shot at the hands of police. 3 times more white people who are shot at the hands of police. The media doesn't mention those stories because they know that you're going to riot. They know how dumb and low IQ you are. You're going to riot. You're going to burn cop cars. You're going to freak out like you do in every other country, right? That where you're the majority in a lot of these certain circumstances. They know you're going to do that, and that will increase ratings for them, because then they can go and cover your ridiculous idiocy, rioting, burning down police cars. They don't tell you that. They also don't tell you that only 6% of our population, black males, commit over 50% of all the murders and 60% of all the violent crime in this country, and that's probably the reason why they have more police run-ins. They don't tell you that. They say that it's oppression, why there's an overrepresentation of black Americans locked up in prisons across the country. Subverted, psychologically subverted, regurgitating talking points, people like Colin Kaepernick going along with the flow, conforming to these ridiculous talking points without having the full context. And this is mainly the reason why I talk about these things. And outside of all of that, I think the biggest thing is that when we look at hate crimes, and you look at the actual statistics on hate crimes, and you see that out of 100,000 black Americans and 100,000 white Americans, you're going to get more perpetrators of hate crimes out of the 100,000 black Americans. And then you look at all the attacks on Jews in New York City where the perpetrator is black and the media is not talking about it. And you start to see these different things that the media is not talking about. And this is the reason why I probably get tons of emails of people who say, hey, didn't know about this. The media didn't talk about this. There's no stories about this. You have to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig into statistics and different things that are hidden from you to actually know these things. And this is what I like to share with a lot of you. And it sounds repetitive at certain points, of course, but the more you repeat it, the more likely you're going to be of having a new person who's never been here before, who's never seen these videos before, seeing it and changing their mind. Videos are posted every single day here about breaking news topics, so make sure you hit the bell button if you haven't already so that you are notified. Check the description for links to Patreon and PayPal, and of course follow me on Gab, Minds, BitChute, and Instagram. Links in the description as well. And of course these videos only go so far, so be sure to share with family and friends.